Well, here we are. We've basically fully assembled. Now, I do still need to glue on the arms on the second unit, but I'm just waiting for the glue to dry on these. So while I'm doing that, I'm thinking of tackling the figure that everyone has nightmares about. Yes, it's the abomination for the Spires. Once that's built, that will be all the figures for the Spires out of the starter set built. And yeah, I've gone together pretty well. There is actually a lot of subtle variety in the shields, I've noticed. So you've got that sort of rounded one, and then there's, for example, a spiky one. And, you know, the heads and the bodies and the arms are all slightly different. So I think when it's all massed ranked, it's going to look great. You don't want too much customization for a rank and file system. But yeah, I've been pretty impressed with how easily and quickly this has all gone together. I did start it last night and we're now pretty much 24 hours later. However, there's been all sorts of stuff going on in the background. So I would reckon this represents maybe 4 hours of work to get this all glued together. And yeah, that's not too bad in my opinion. However, I am a little bit concerned about the abomination because although bits of it go together really simply, it's got some ball joints which are a nightmare on such a large figure. So you've got, for example, this leg here, which then sockets into the torso, which I believe is, for example, part of this is going to form the torso. And then you've got a ball joint for let's see, there you go, ball joint for the arm. So when you come back, you might see me cursing trying to put together this abomination. It's about 90 minutes after I started assembling this abomination. As you can see, I've ignored the instructions, and what I've actually done is I've glued the legs on to the body, and unfortunately I've dripped some glue, which could be a bit of a problem. So let's make sure we avoid that. And what I've done is I've got a tripod arrangement with a raised leg. I've then glued the body with the hands, and I've sort of roughly posed it just by holding it into the body, so I know it's going to fit and clear this leg. The big problem is going to be working out which of the many feet. So they're the solid ones, and then there are also some two-parters that you glue. I've also managed to glue all the arms onto the drones, but I decided to glue them onto their bases because they kept falling over, and actually 2 or 3 the spears snapped off. But I repaired them, and I would challenge you to work out which ones were the damaged ones. Brutes obviously are quite happy, and the Ferromancer has also been glued to his base, so it's just the shields to do once it's painted. So I'm just waiting for this to fully dry, and this as well, because there's quite a bit of glue. The instructions are relatively easy to follow, but you probably will need to follow the instructions to put the abomination together. Anyway, I'm going to leave this to dry probably overnight, so I will finish up this video in the morning. Well, good morning for me. As you can see, we are the following day, and the glue has set, and I'm quite happy with my abomination. The one thing I did is I sort of have it in sort of this run-in pose where the back foot actually doesn't quite touch the ground. So if I spin it around, you might be able to see that. But equally, I could potentially glue it down. I might have to do some green stuff just to secure it to the base, but I'm not going to glue because you're definitely going to want to be able to pick this figure up and glue it in place. Now, the trickiest bit I found assembling this was getting these legs done. So what I did is I made sure both front and back legs were the same sort of length as each other. You know, so the small legs were the same length and the long legs were the same length. But I also sort of trial fitted, I think it was this leg first, and then trial fitted this leg. And once I was happy with it, I glued it, and I didn't put the feet on. Then when it came to putting the feet on, I sort of held the feet down, put some glue, and just rested the abomination on top. So I actually found this not quite as challenging to put together as I feared it would be from various YouTube and blog post comments about the difficulty of assembling it. But yeah, that for a starter set, that is a really tricksy figure to assemble, and it's only because I've been doing wargaming for over 20 years that I didn't find it too challenging. But yeah, it's not a trivial kit to put together. I think there might be some green stuff needed for various gaps and bits and pieces. So, for example, this bit didn't quite seal to my satisfaction. I think the neckline and the back's okay, but it looks a bit odd here. So, yeah, there might be some green stuffing to do on this, and then same with the greaves. The glue has set hard. This was a little bit wobbly last night, so I was a bit concerned. And getting this body socket in place was quite tricksy, so I actually dribbled some extra glue in, so this is really melted into itself. Now, with a sort of ball and socket joint, you could potentially have articulated it, but that would be quite a lot of custom conversion with pins and slots and stuff. But that'd be pretty cool to do like a He-Man style articulation on your abomination. So that's a pretty dynamic pose, and it's quite a chunky boy, because as you can see, it's 2, maybe 3 times as high as a regular guy. Your Ferromancer is quite tiny in comparison. And bearing in mind that these infantry bases are big 38mm scale, you can really get an appreciation of how big that is. Excuse the banging, I'm just going to open my cupboard door here. So yeah, just to give you a sense of scale, here's my metal troll. And as you can see, he's a bit shorter because he's slouched over than the brutes, although he is a bit wider. And he's puny. I mean, he looks like an infantry figure compared to this abomination. So yeah, that's really exciting. Well, I think that's going to be it for the assembly video for the Spires. I think they're pretty much all done and dusted now. So it's just a question of when am I going to be able to paint them. As I mentioned in the previous bit I recorded, I have had to glue these guys onto the base, which is a bit sad. Now, one option you could do is glue them on with super glue, and then you can snap them off the base fairly easily. Because I've used plastic glue, these guys are pretty much set. But I figured, I can probably paint around that. I'm used to painting figures on bases, but yeah, this guy is definitely going to be an airbrush job. I'm quite keen to investigate this two-tone paint that I've heard about to do like the carapace with and maybe the eyes. So I'm going to have a look and see where I can get hold of some two-tone paint, because that's pretty exciting stuff. But yeah, as I say, that's pretty much it for the Spires. So it's now a question of the 100 Kingdoms and the extra booster boxes that you can get when you buy the starter set directly off Parabellum. Now, you might notice a lot of these Conquest videos have been marked as promos or paid promos. I'm not convinced I need to do that, but I'm doing it as a safety feature because obviously I've actually bought this off Parabellum and was very excited about it. And while I was waiting for it to be delivered, they talked about an affiliate program. So I've joined that as a YouTube person. And it's good for me, and it's good for you, and it's good for the company. So if you like this product and you want to buy it, if you could use my affiliate link, that's going to give you, I think it's a 10% discount. It also gives me a bit of store credit in the form of a discount. I don't actually get any payment. So that will help my channel to bring more of this sort of content. If you don't care a fig for Conquest or War Games, you could also support me on Patreon as well. And that way, I'd have more time for role-playing games, computer games, board games, etc. So I'm probably going to take a little bit of a break from Conquest and look at maybe doing another video project, but then I'll be coming back to this box set to do the 100 Kingdoms. And obviously I will also need to think about paint scheme. So I am thinking of going with the sort of standard white and blue paint scheme for the Spires, but I am debating something a bit more funky than that, and that will depend on whether I can get this two-tone paint for this bad boy over here. Then obviously, once I've got the painting more or less done, I can glue these shields on finally. These might end up getting glued on before I paint, but I'm really trying to avoid that because having had to glue the figures onto the base, that would be a bit of a shame. So anyway, let's just pan back a bit so you can see the complete box. So this is half of what you get in the starter box. So I think it represents really good value. Nice, easy to assemble figures apart from the abomination, but he's not too tricky if you're used to assembling figures, but if you're a total novice, you might need to get some help on that one. The PDF instructions get you to glue the legs on and the body on in a weird order for me, so I would follow the instructions for assembling the individual components, but when it actually comes to like gluing the figure and the feet on, I recommend glue the feet on, then the torso once all the glue's set. Anyway, I think that will do for this brief little update video on the Spires. So until the next video, happy gaming.